Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I am James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and we are excited on a Tuesday night, as always, to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Big day. Trade deadline is officially over today. We got so much to talk about, Glenn. Just a few things, of course. We're going to talk about Roquan. We're going to talk about the trade deadline as a whole throughout the NFL a little bit. We'll talk about the Ravens' grades. Ended up being what maybe they could have done. And then we'll get into activations, roster moves, this upcoming game. But we have a surprise, ladies and gentlemen. We have a surprise for you. We're pretty excited about. Glenn, what we got going on tonight? I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, we have a Lauren Cox is going to be joining the show, who is a podcast host for Locked On Bears, and just totally locked in on what's going on in Chicago. And I'd love to get some insight on what Roquan was like as a teammate in the community, and some more. He's in Chicago, so I mean, we see some highlights and we see this and that, but we don't really know the type of guy that the Ravens are getting. So excited to see, to get some insight from a guy who's watched his entire career, with the Bears. So I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is the kind of stuff you should come to expect here at 410 Sports Talk, right?
That's right.
I think this is some really cool coverage, right? To get a Bears media guy, his perspective on a guy that's now a Raven. I think that's exciting stuff.
No doubt. Absolutely. Because it's just like when we watch the national media and we see them saying crazy stuff about the Ravens that we know is reckless. Well, it's probably the same in every, sports town. And the stuff we see is just an incomplete picture of Roquan. So I'd like to hear what he has to say. But let's hear what Laura has to say. She says, "Good evening, guys. Curious, do you feel 100% that Lamar wants to be in Baltimore?" I do, and I hate this talk. It says he doesn't. What are your thoughts?
I think that what she's referring to, Laura, correct us if I'm wrong in the chat, but there's a whole group of people on Twitter that are, and I don't know if you saw the video from Skip Bayless, from the Skip Bayless podcast. He basically said from one of his trusted sources inside the Ravens staff or whatever that's inside the building. He's heard that Lamar has become disconnected, and right now he is in the middle of a hold in. That he's showing up late to meetings. He's uninterested. He's disengaged. He's showing up late to practice.
Really?
I don't believe any of it. I just don't. I think
this is all coming from just Skip.
And then of course there's people on Twitter that think that they're, that they've heard things or people are coming to conclusions, right? The sign and stuff like that. But the only media member I heard it from was Skip. That he apparently heard it from somebody that he's close to inside the Ravens organization, which I don't believe there would be other people reporting on it. Even the Ravens media members didn't pay any credence to it.
Yeah.
Not in-house Raven, but like beat writers, right?
I think I would be, first of all, stunned that Skip Bayless has any inside sources anywhere left in the league from his, older days, but certainly not in the Ravens. But man, I mean, even if that was the that's a poor strategy, I don't buy that in any way. I mean, I don't see Lamar enacting a strategy that would only look bad on him. Like that being late to meetings and all that stuff is only going to make you play worse on the field. So I
think not going to get you paid more. That's for sure. It's not going to get you paid more money.
I think it's crazy to even suggest that's a strategy, and as a strategy, it's a trash one. So,
then of course they said even in the meetings he's like disengaged. Like that's the biggest difference.
So now they're in the meetings. Now Skip's source is in the meetings. Damn, right. Is it Snoop? Is Tyler Huntley talking trash trying to get his job, man? Come on, man.
You already know Lamar's his boy. But so I don't pay it any mind. Laura is my answer.
I think he wants to be here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Lamar's not stupid. That's one thing that we know about Lamar Jackson. He knows football. He has to know that he's in a good situation here. Outside looking in, some fans are upset about the fact that he doesn't have, a stockpile of receivers, and that is what it is. We're going to get into that a little bit, but at the end of the day, he knows this is a good situation for him. He has to. I mean, do you think he's that blind?
Yeah, I mean, they built
the entire
say what you want and how they did it, but say what exactly. Say what you want. If you criticize if you want on how they did it, but they built the entire team around them. So
100%.
That would be kind of crazy. Nicholas says, curious, where do you guys stand on Roquan extension? On one hand, it makes sense given draft capital. giving up and plus the need for inside linebacker, but $100 million for an inside linebacker. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly steep, but I will say this. There's a few positions on defense that still play 90 to 100% of the snaps. And it's typically, at least on this team, it's your corners, so Marlon and Marcus, your safeties, and then your middle linebacker is the only players that play 90+% of the snaps. So if you're going to be on the field for 90 to 100% of the snaps anyway, I mean, I think it's important that that's one of the players that would be on the field 100% of the time. It's not like you're giving that kind of money to a guy who's only playing 60, 70% of the snaps. So in that regard, I'm okay with it. But I will say this. I think it makes a little – I wonder how they're going to manipulate if they have to give a franchise tag. I assume the more important person would be towards Lamar. However, the cheaper way to do that would be give the bag to Lamar and give the franchise tag to Roquan. But I mean, what's your take on how all that?
Yeah, so I guess I'm excited to have this guy on the show because I might be, I was in on the whole contract dispute because the Ravens name came up quickly. But is this the number he's looking for? I haven't heard a specific
apparently
number.
20. Everyone's
20
just assuming that 20 a year is the starting point because of where the market is right now.
Well, look, one thing I know is if there's a path forward, Eric DeCosta is going to figure it out. I don't know. Forgive me. Maybe I'm naive. In a lot of ways, I have a lot of confidence in Eric DeCosta. Obviously, I was a bit upset with the lack of guaranteed money that they offered Lamar Jackson, but I'm standing on the fact, Glenn, that I think it was a Bisciotti call, not a DeCosta call. Mm-hmm. I'm standing on that myself. So I think unless it comes down to something that paramount again, I think DeCosta gets the deal done. I mean, I don't know how it looks or whatever it has to be. Maybe it's not 100 million. Maybe it's some more guaranteed. Like you said, there's a lot of ways to manipulate it. Yeah. But Eric DeCosta, I don't think would have pulled the trigger unless he was okay with this being a 1 or half year rental for a second round pick, which I don't think he would be, or he was confident that he could get a deal done.
Well, one thing I think I want to quickly point out is that so they gave up a second and a fifth. Mm-hmm. Worst case scenario, he walks, you get a third comp pick back.
Right.
So it's not like it's not quite, the dire. So they will get some compensation. But also I want to point out that Calais Campbell's clearly in his last year, that he's made that very clear. His salary, which is pretty substantial, his cap hit is off the books next year. The feeling
Houston,
is that
JPP, like all those numbers add up.
Yeah, those guys are all going to be gone. So I think there's going to be some money. I think the feeling is that Marcus Peters is either not going to be here, or if he is here, he's going to be a much lower cap hit than he's currently at. I would like to see Marcus here, but I can understand why the team, might feel like it's time, if they can't agree to a lower cap hit, that might be time. So I think there's going to be some money to be spent. Man, I look at it like this. They're way better now and this season than they were before. And that's what most Ravens fans wanted, is a bit of an all-in attempt.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can't disagree with you there. Let's go to this next one here.
Sean says,
I think you
evening,
skipped
guys.
one,
oh, okay.
Well, yeah. We'll go to Sean's. We'll go back. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I did actually. My bad.
Evening,
guys. Hope you guys are well. Been thinking about this. I think Duvernay should be number 1 receiver. And after the Bateman news, I'm kind of feeling like he's becoming another Perriman. And I hate saying that. Yeah, man, I feel bad for Bateman because he's going to start getting these criticisms and comparisons to Perriman, whether it's fair or not. But the bottom line is he's spent an awful lot of time on the sideline and not on the field where he needs to be. Whether that's fair or unfair criticism, it is what it is. You'd like to think he should be on the field more if he's going to be your number 1.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think I'm ready to go there yet, Sean. Hopefully we can walk you back off the ledge. Because I think he's already played more than Perriman played in his first 2 years combined. If not certainly close. I mean, Perriman didn't see the field in year 1, right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing something.
Oh no,
here.
Did he? Oh yeah, that's right. He got hurt, and then that injury that started off as minor
became chronic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some guys go through, I mean, there's stories. Dave, what's his name? The linebacker down in the Panthers. He played next to Kuechly. Is it David Thomas?
Davis.
Thomas Davis. There you go. I knew he had like 2 first names. I didn't know the order of it. But anyway, I mean, he had a myriad of injuries at the beginning of his career. There's a lot of guys that have kind of gone through that. Brent Urban, if you
And
remember.
took off.
Right, exactly. And then, you kind of
Nick
get it together.
Boyle.
Right. Yeah, you get your body right. It happens sometimes. I think people are impatient with Bateman because of the position he plays.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I think at the end of the day, the Ravens are going to do what's best for him. But I don't think I'm ready to say Perryman yet. Hopefully we can walk you back from that ledge there, Sean.
Yeah, no doubt. That's man, I hope not. I certainly hope not. Redbeard says, quick question. Favorite trade today that has nothing to do with the Ravens? Well, if we're only talking today, because I certainly love the Christian McCaffrey deal not long back, but if we're only talking today, I tell you, I think we need to start paying a little more attention to the Minnesota Vikings and taking them a little more seriously. They go get TJ Hawkinson to go along with Jefferson and Thielen and Cook. And
yeah.
I think that defense is starting to cook. I mean, I hate to say it, but Zadarius Smith is leading the league in sacks. You got to give that guy a little bit of credit, even though he burned the Ravens.
Justin Houston is 6th.
There you go.
He's tied with Von Miller, who's making a lot more money than him.
A lot more money. So I like the TJ Hawkinson deal, but I mean, there's a bunch of them. I thought that the move by the Dolphins was a nice move.
That was going to be mine.
Chubb.
I mean, right. That one's huge, I think, for them, for sure, right? But at the end of the day, the only reason I can't, not that I don't take them seriously, but at the end of the Vikings still have Captain Kirk under center. And when the lights are bright, you just don't know what it's going to be, right?
Not
so
yet.
That's my only hesitation to buy in there. And the Dolphins, I mean, obviously they beat us and Tua lit us up. But they have a young coach and a young quarterback. Like if we see them in the playoffs, I'm going to lean on the fact that John's been there and Lamar in the playoffs at this point has been there. And so I'm hoping that experience, will be a big benefit to us. But
I think
that's
my
favorite.
Very confident in that game.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you my least favorite one was I told you, Glenn, that the GM over in Chicago, you give him $100 million in
Chase
draft
Claypool
for a second.
So basically, just so you know, they basically traded Roquan Smith for Chase Claypool in a 5th. And they don't like him. The Steelers organization don't like the guy.
He's a me guy.
Exactly. Can't be that and play for the Steelers. That's for sure. But also sneaky trade today. I thought trading away Chase Edmonds and trading for Jeff Wilson, kind of a 2-part deal.
Right?
Yeah, they traded Edmonds, I think, to the Broncos, and they traded for Jeff Wilson from the Niners, who fits their scheme perfectly. I think was kind of a sneaky good move.
Well,
but
and the Buffaloes to pick up Hines.
Yeah, Nakeem Hines.
They needed that.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad either. Cakes Mitchell says, what role does PQ develop into with the Roquan news? I'm so curious about that too, Cakes, because I think PQ could look at this a couple different ways. He could get really salty and kind of get in his feelings and say, man, this isn't what I wanted, and kind of sink away, or even go so far as to kind of alienate himself from the rest of the team. But I think what he's going to do is try and capitalize on this and just play to the best of his abilities, because now the Ravens will have the flexibility to only insert him in places where he can succeed. So let's just hope that he takes off in a more limited role. Certainly his snap count is going to be massively impacted from this, huge slash, massive. But let's hope that maybe less is more for a player like PQ, at least for right now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can't disagree with you there. Really tough situation to figure out what's going to go through his head, right? To say, this is how he's going to react, or this is how they're going to use him. But one of the things you brought up, Glenn, in our last show when we acquired Roquan was if that potentially this could be the sweet spot. This could be the sweet spot as far as snaps, to where it leaves him from getting exposed in unfavorable situations for him, where you only play him in situations where he's going to have the upper hand. So we're hoping that is the case.
Yep.
Mike Shepard, appreciate the super sticker. Shout out for the support. Let's see. Is there another one here? There's a few of them here.
Yeah, we
Okay.
got Marco G here says,
Here
I
we go.
like the Roquan move, and middle linebacker definitely was weakness, but not making a move for an impact wide receiver with Bate out doesn't make sense. PQ needs help, but not LJ. Yeah, I think now to his point, Jimbo, a lot of people wanted a wide receiver. So let's get into it. I think that there was really
You want
only
Brandon
to
Cooks, $18 million
that's what I'm
next
saying.
year?
That's the only one to my knowledge that was out there that was available was Brandon Cooks. Surprised he didn't get moved. Honestly, I thought he'd be more likely to be found in Green Bay than Baltimore. But yeah, actually, you know what? I think we're gonna we're gonna have
Yeah,
to
we'll take a beat
shelve.
on this one.
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah,
have to
we'll be
shelve
back,
this.
Marco.
Yeah, exactly. But we're gonna circle back to this for sure because I think it's certainly an interesting topic.
Yeah, and all the other super chats as well that are currently in there, we'll get back to you. But we don't want to leave our guest waiting.
Yep.
The one, the only, Lauren Cox. That's right, bro. Happy to have you, Lauren. How you doing, man? And
Hey,
forgive us if we are mispronouncing your name.
No, you're doing it just fine. It's been a whirlwind day, but it's finally slowed down. Once the deadline hit, finally slowed down a little bit here, and happy to come on with you.
I have to admit, my second favorite city and my favorite eating when I got an appetite, I want to be in Chicago. Best food in the country, and it's not even close.
Not gonna argue with you there, man. We do it great, man. It's a pleasure to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're glad that you hopped on with us, and we're excited for the Ravens fans to get something out of this. So, Glenn, I'm gonna let you kick it off here. We got a few questions for you in regards to Roquan. We're really excited to hear your take on it.
Absolutely, yeah. Hey, Lauren, thanks again for jumping on with us. The first thing I want to know is, we see the highlights, we see the numbers, we see he's leading the league in tackles, but what we don't see is more of what happens in the locker room and with his teammates. So Lauren, what type of a teammate, what type of guy are the Ravens getting in Roquan Smith?
Yeah, Roquan's a little bit more soft-spoken when you hear him talk, but he definitely is one of those speak soft and carry a big stick type of leaders in the locker room, where he's definitely not, quiet. He's just not the high energy, like bouncing off the walls kind of leader either, but like very, very well respected and will speak up when he needs to. And is definitely one of those central figures that, his teammates love and would do anything for. And a very, emotional player on and off the field that I think kind of gives guys that freedom to be vulnerable with him and to be emotional and to kind of, be themselves and be the type of players that they can be up to their absolute maximum there. So he will be very much missed in terms of the leadership aspect in this Bears locker room. He was a captain and a guy that the Bears themselves said like they kind of hope to be able to keep him here long term, and just negotiations kind of broke down. And of course, he doesn't have an agent, and there's some emotions involved with that process. And ultimately, they move on from not because they were just so desperate to get rid of him, but just because they felt like they needed to make sure they get something for him as opposed to letting him walk or something in free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to dig more into, the type of player like Glenn asked about in the locker room, but not only that on the field. But before we do that, we've got to get to the contract situation. You kind of alluded to that. So a lot of Ravens fans are now nervous about the fact that we have two guys, both without agents, in Lamar Jackson and Roquan Smith, both who were unable to come to deals with their, at the time, current teams, and now are looking for new money, right? They're looking for new contracts. What do you know about the details of the contract negotiation with Roquan? Do you know if there's a number? We've been hearing like 20 a year annually is what he's looking for. What have you heard as far as where it broke down and what he was wanting from the Bears?
Yeah, the Bears have been very intentionally quiet about, getting into the specifics about it. But it's my understanding, that $20 million a year number is around where Roquan was looking for. He wants to be paid like Fred Warner and Shaquille Leonard, like the top linebacker. I don't know if he specifically needs to be has to be number one in per year average, but has to feel like he's setting the linebacker market. When he went public with his trade demand, he kind of said, I need to take a contract that's going to be fair for future linebackers and help, not bring other future linebackers down in terms of what their negotiations were. And he felt, quote unquote, disrespected by the offer that the Bears made. And some of that, the Bears said there were record setting aspects of the deal. So the reading between the lines and some of the things I've heard was that the Bears were inflating the per year average, but weren't guaranteeing a lot of it on the back end, so that it was backloaded, but not backloaded with guarantees, so that they could get out of it without having to pay him, the full amount over the course of the contract. So I do think, despite not having an agent, Roquan's fairly, well-versed in what a team might try and pull on him to get a more team-friendly deal. But I think there's also aspects of the emotions involved in that process when you don't have an agent to sort of serve as that buffer between the general manager or whoever's negotiating and the player. When the GM says, hey, we think you're very good. The Bears wanted him to be around. They just don't think he's $20 million a year, Fred Warner, Shaquille Leonard good. They just think he's very good. And that leaves them more in the, $15, $16 million range with maybe a little room to work up there. But I don't think Roquan was working much farther down from 20. And they said, all right, we're just not going to be able to find common ground here. They're just too stuck in there, both sides. And ultimately a separation is the result.
Yeah, quick follow-up. Now, that's what, Roquan has his opinion of himself. The Bears have their opinion of him as far as, comparatively speaking to his peers that play that position. What say you, right? Do you think he is Fred Warner worthy, of that? He's worthy of that money? Or do you think he is a second tier from the two guys that you mentioned?
Yeah, it feels like an insult when you say he's a second tier. And that's what I always want to be careful with. But I tend to be more on the Bears side of that equation that, as much as you can see the highlights from Roquan Smith, there are lowlights too. Like he's a player who he's either reading the play perfectly and making a big tackle for a loss in the backfield or great play instinctually in coverage to step in front for an interception, or he's making the tackle 8, 9, 10 yards downfield, where he leads the league in tackles for a reason. He does a great job of always being around the ball, but he's not a physical take on blocks type of linebacker. He's an athletic run around blocks type of linebacker. And oftentimes running around blocks means either running backwards and giving up ground to the offensive lineman and the running game as a result, and making that tackle 6, 7 yards downfield where the offense is happy to take that many yards before giving up the tackle. Or he's trying to cut under a block and he'll be too aggressive and attack a gap too early and not just do his job and fill his lane to redirect the running back to someone else. And so you get this sort of high variance of the really good highlight plays and then the negative plays that they don't cost you a 50-yard touchdown run, but they're just not necessarily exactly what you need your linebacker to do, particularly in run defense coverage. I think you can see the instincts and for the most part, he's very solid in that regard, except for play action. He bites heavily on play action, and the Bears have been bitten by that multiple times where receivers will run routes behind him and the other linebacker. It wasn't just him in Chicago, but something that, again, you want the Fred Warner level linebackers not going to make those mistakes on play action, are going to be more physical in taking on blocks and not going to give up ground to the running game. Still a very, very good linebacker, though, and a player that the Bears are going to miss and would have liked to have long-term on their team.
Yeah, now I think the one thing that we're excited about as Ravens fans in Baltimore is that the Ravens have been able to find linebackers that can do certain things very well, but they haven't been able to find that 3-down linebacker. And I think that's what has a lot of fans excited is he can do it. Seemingly from our perspective, he can seemingly do it all. He can play the pass, play the run, blitz as well. So when I know he's a little bit undersized, but when you look at a Ravens team that has a lot of big guys up front and can seemingly keep him clean from those offensive linemen getting up to him, what do you think his potential could be joining a team that has, Calais Campbell and Metabike and has all these big guys up front that could, at least in theory, keep the linebacker free and let him show off that athleticism?
Yeah, I think the Ravens are a great fit in that regard. Like when you saw Roquan Smith at his best in Chicago, you think 2018 when up front he has Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman, Bilal Nichols, big, beefy defensive linemen in that 3-4 scheme that are occupying blocks in front of him. So he doesn't have to fight through blocks. He could just scrape over the top and attack downhill. And that's where he's at his absolute best and plays at that Pro Bowl caliber level. So I think he's going to be very successful in Baltimore as a result. And I think for the Bears, what it comes down to is like, if he's a linebacker that needs to have those bigger players in front of him, is he worth $20 million? I think that's where the valuation difference comes. But absolutely, Baltimore feels like the kind of situation where he should be able to be at his best, be aggressive, be instinctual, and attack. Because when he could just read and react and go, he does it quickly and he does a really good job at it.
And then ultimately, my other question would be, of course, on our end, we feel like we won the trade, right? But and there's of course the saying from Jerry Buss that is referenced all the time, that 5 nickels don't always equal a quarter, right? When you're making these trades, usually the best player ends up, or the most valuable asset, and whether it's 1 or 10, you'd rather have the 1. So who do you think ultimately wins this trade? Would you prefer today to have the 2 and the 5th, the 2nd and the 5th rounder?
I guess Chase Claypool, right? I don't know.
Yeah, the Bears kept the Ravens pick and sent the Bears' own pick in that trade because they had to outbid the Packers at this report. But it's tough because the Ravens and Bears are coming from two different perspectives here. So like, I was expecting the Bears to get more for Roquan Smith on the trade market. So like big picture, like short answer, yes, I think the Ravens won the trade. But I think from the Bears' perspective, they didn't see any possibility or very low possibility of re-signing Roquan Smith, and they didn't want to franchise tag him and then try and trade him then, and the new team has to negotiate with him and not even have them in their building. That I think they felt a little bit pressed into making a deal now. And so with that context, I don't think it's terrible value for the Bears considering the different aspects that were going against it. But I do think, like the Bears are not going to get a player as good as Roquan Smith with a 2nd and 5th round pick. Like it reminds me of the early season of Family Guy when Peter Griffin has the chance between winning a boat or what's in the magic box. And he says, well, the boat's a boat, but the magic box could be anything. It could be a boat. You know how much we wanted one of those. Like the 2nd round pick could be anything. It could be a really good linebacker. You know how much the Bears could use one of those. So it's like, yeah, I think the Ravens got the better of this one. And plus you have the possibility of a compensatory 3rd round pick. If, he doesn't resign for some reason and sign somewhere else, if the free agency plays out that way, you're getting a pretty good, insurance policy on that back end that you're not out everything from a draft concept. So I think it's a smarter move for the Ravens and more of a necessity for the Bears. And when you don't have the leverage in that regard, you take what you can get, and a 2nd round pick is okay.
Yeah, Glenn, isn't this a Michael Scott? What is this? A win? Everybody's winning type scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think you said it perfectly, Lauren. It was more of a need play by the Bears, but the Ravens certainly. I love the aggressive nature from Eric DeCosta because I don't think we would have seen this trade if, as much as we love Ozzie Newsome, he just wasn't the aggressive GM that Eric DeCosta is. So I'm all for being more aggressive, especially if you have a team that you think can kind of go get it. So yeah, kudos to the Ravens for doing it. But Lauren, thanks so much for jumping in and joining us. Appreciate you spending some time with us, giving us some insight into what type of player they're getting. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find your stuff and what you're working on?
I totally made the mistake of not shouting you out at the beginning and letting you plug. So yeah, please do.
No worries, guys. Appreciate you having me on. Yeah, on Twitter at Cox Sports One. I always say it's like Fox Sports One, but with a C. You give me 5 days a week on the Locked On Bears podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And I think you have a lot of Bears fans rooting for Roquan Smith in Baltimore. There's not this animosity of like, oh yeah, get that bum out of here. He was too selfish. I think a lot of Bears fans were really sad to see him go. The Bears kind of said that we were sad to see him go, but I'm wishing him and you guys all the best of luck with him moving forward.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks again. Have a great evening and eat some deep dish for me. For all of us here in Baltimore, we would greatly appreciate it.
It's a little bit overrated.
Oh, nice.
It's like Roquan Smith. Like it's very good, but it's $20 million a year good pizza.
I tell you what, a lot of people outside Chicago might not know this, but Chicago gives LA a run for its money when it comes to Mexican food. That I can say. I mean, the Mexican food in Chicago is comparative to that of LA. Yes. So go enjoy whatever it is within the smorgasbord of food available within Chicago. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so much, Lauren. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys. You too.
Take care. All right. Well, there you go. You heard it from Lauren himself. Looks like the Ravens are getting a heck of a player, but
I think that was a fair like breakdown of the situation. Don't you think?
Absolutely. No doubt about it. I mean, I look at a player like Roquan because when you look at his highlights and then you look at his lowlights, they look a lot. They look similar, and the reason they look similar is because it's kind of one of those things. When it works, it works great, and when it doesn't, it works. No, it doesn't look so good at the end, but it looks very similar in the lead up to that point because he will try and take certain angles and jump around guys instead of taking on block. Look, he's 6'1", 238. He's not the old school 6'3", 250 linebacker anymore. It's just and that's why he can cover so damn good. Assad Rockman says, we just got one of the best inside linebackers and people are crying it wasn't a wide receiver. Bro, what? Roquan wipes people off the planet. Also, people relate our defensive deficiencies to pass coverage. Tackling has been just as bad. No doubt about it. Tackling's been a problem. And
pass
Patrick
coverage.
Queen's been a big part of that. And part is the pass coverage issues. The guy's been looking, kind of lost at times. But Yeah, I mean, I think this was kind of your point, Jimbo.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I just want to remind everyone that football is a team game, that there are multiple positions on the field. Everyone matters. Every unit matters. A perfect example is, I was just talking about this on air, and I know that Jamar Chase was hurt, but the Bengals have an incredible stable of wide receivers, but Joe Burrow gets smashed every other play because he has no offensive line. So
no run game.
Right, and no run game. So I'm guessing the Bengals fans are really upset that they can't get him an offensive line, right? But you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. At the end of the day, it's very difficult to have it all. And I think the Ravens do a decent job of doing their very best to have it all within the construct of the salary cap, right? So for me, at the end of the day, the value just wasn't there. I think we need to put some respect on the name of the guys that we have in the locker room. And then we talk about this all the time, like ad nauseum. People say that the tight ends don't run the same routes and they're not wide receivers. And whatever bogus claim you want to make, I don't buy it, because Lamar drops back and looks for 89. He doesn't think, he's a tight end. You know what? I better throw it to wide receiver because wide receivers run different routes. He does not care, ladies and gentlemen. It does not work that way. Okay? Like, it doesn't work that way. All I'm saying is that, Assad, I agree with you. I think that we shouldn't be complaining about it. This is an incredibly valuable deal, right, that we got in exchange for our 2 picks. And
well, let's get into it, because I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate, and also I do have some concerns with this group. And look,
don't forget, we got to go back to those old super chats too.
I'm cycling through them now.
Okay, cool.
And maybe I can just kind of work through them as I talk. It's just Quansis, so who's beating Marshawn Lattimore one-on-one. I think here's the concern, Jimbo, and I get why there's concern. I get the Ravens plan too, and you're 100% right when you say you can't have it all, because look at all the weapons the Bengals have, and yet when you don't have an offensive line that can keep your quarterback upright and can't create open lanes for your running backs to run, so you don't have a run game, then you end up in situations where it doesn't matter how good your weapons are. But when Bateman goes down, now that he's down, and some are predicting that he's going to need surgery on that foot, and that this is going to be a lengthy injury, if not season-ending injury. With him out, it's clear that the outside receivers, there's a lack of talent in the outside receiver room. There just is. I mean, I love Devin Duvernay, but after Devin Duvernay,
you got 35-year-old Deshaun Jackson.
And let's be honest, I think they're going to have to count on him to be somewhat of a big play threat, at least in spots. So I understand why there's concern. I just give the Ravens a bit more of a pass, because I see that they keep trying to address it. But at the same time, I get the frustration, because at this point they haven't. And even in the Roquan Smith deal, I mean, you look at both those positions. You look at inside linebacker and wide receiver. Over the last few years, Jimbo, they put a lot of draft capital towards both of those. They took, in one draft, they took a linebacker in the 1st and 3rd round. They've taken multiple first-round wide receivers, multiple receivers throughout the draft, and yet they still haven't found the answer. So I get why there's frustration, but I also like and respect the fact that the Ravens aren't trying to copycat everybody else and be a recycled version of other teams. And they're saying, you know what? Maybe we haven't been able to find that, so let's make that not the emphasis on our offense. So I'm so torn, Jimbo, but I get their frustration of wideout. I get
it. For sure. So I guess what I'll rephrase my comments as is that, no, I'm not rephrasing. I'm not stepping off what I said. Like, get over it. It is what it is. Like, I can't make myself do it, because at the end of the day, that's the thing. You can't say they haven't tried. People are acting as if the Ravens haven't drafted a receiver since their inception. Eric DeCosta, if I'm not mistaken, has drafted the most receivers since since the beginning of his tenure as a GM. So like you said, they're taking swings. And in this deadline, it would have been a Madden type trade that would have had to happen, which wasn't going to happen in real life. Or you're going to have to get Brandon Cooks, right? Like another short guy that's really fast.
Well, this year,
and then the Ravens would have said, we should have got Chase Claypool. He's 6'4". Half the fans, like the village people, would have said, oh, well, Chase Claypool was out there.
But
like,
look,
win is
There
enough.
wasn't a market. There wasn't a guy.
That's the thing.
This
So if you're
year,
talking
there wasn't.
specifically, right? So you're talking specifically about this trade deadline.
There wasn't a
it's
guy.
not fair, right?
Yeah,
it's just
there
simply
wasn't a
not fair
guy.
because it wasn't there. But I also want to
Brandon
say
Cooks
this.
is not the guy. Hell no. $18 million a year for Brandon Cooks? Hell no.
Ultimately, what it comes down to is this, Glenn. Do you believe that? So this question to Quan, right? So who's beating Marshawn Lattimore one-on-one? I understand that pertains to this game coming up. Do you think we need a guy that's going to beat him one-on-one to win this game?
You don't need to.
Right, and now that let's take that like out of a vacuum and put it into a and really the ultimate question is, do the Ravens need that guy to win a Super Bowl? I don't know the answer to that. No one does. I believe that we can get there and win the way that we are constructed. But ultimately, everyone will say the same thing until it happens.
Exactly, because the stain right now is they shut down the run game, and sometimes as part of that shut down the run game was self-inflicted. It was honestly, it was Greg Roman getting away from the run game a little too soon, but that's the stain, that if they shut down the run game, can we beat them through the air when there's 10 in the box?
Right.
And I think there's some people who question.
Oh, I think you just went through one that we didn't address yet.
Sorry. Here we go.
Yeah,
Ravens O's Nations. Remember the games we let slip away because we couldn't get stops at the end? Not because of scoring. Underrated need at linebacker. No doubt. But I will say Ravens O's 100%. The defense, they gave up 28 points in 15 plays in one game. They gave up 3 double-digit leads in the second half. No doubt the defense was a big part of that. But certainly the offense played its role in lack of clock, the lack of ball. What am I looking for? They held the ball. They couldn't hold the ball in the second half. They couldn't. There's a
ball
phrase.
control.
Ball control. Lack of ball control in the second half of those games. If they just get a couple first downs, not even touchdowns, not even points, just if they just were able to string together a few first downs and punt rather than 3 and outs or turnovers, then it could have been a totally different game as well. So I think both sides of the ball played their role in those collapses, but no doubt that linebacker was a big need for the Ravens. No doubt.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I couldn't disagree with that more. You got any other devil's advocates points, or did I stomp those into ashes?
Well, Devon Allen says when we lose in the playoffs and only score 10 points, don't blame Lamar. I think that's well,
Lamar gets all the glory, so Lamar will get the lion's share of the blame as well if that's the case.
That's how it goes for
Sorry,
quarterbacks.
Devon. That's really simple, right? Like Lamar gets all the glory because every time we win, it's on the back of Lamar Jackson and no one else matters. Everyone else is a footnote. Right? Certainly in the national media, that's how it's. Plus,
he didn't get blamed when we lost that Bills game. I mean, the,
right.
the snaps were getting the snap over his
head.
I
know on this show we blamed a lot of people outside of simply Lamar Jackson. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, he's going to get all the praise and all the blame. Just how it goes. You play quarterback, you get paid the most. Yeah.
Yep, no doubt about it. Laura says, as long as Lamar Jackson is happy, then I am.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as we're winning, he's going to be happy because that's all he wants to do is win football games. And now, if you look at this schedule, it's looking very favorable for the Ravens.
Yeah, so I just want to I want to put this into perspective for everyone, okay? Glenn, this is an exercise that I've learned lately. You know that I like to do distance running and there's moments where it gets pretty painful, right? But what you start to ask yourself is, what is the worst case scenario? What is the reality of my situation? Okay, if this is the pain that I have to take and all the way to the end, okay, well, actually, it's not that bad. Like the reality of the Ravens situation right now, and the reason that it's frustrating for me to watch to like people hear people complain about it is that the reality is, like you said, Glenn, the market wasn't there.
Yeah.
So right now, this is the team we have. No one is coming in to save us.
Deshaun Jackson is.
Yeah, right. But ultimately, the question really becomes, did we do the best we could with what was available at the trade deadline? I think the answer is ultimately yes. Now, in this offseason, we can readdress that conversation when it comes to wide receiver. But right now, there's really not much we can do about it.
I mean, here's one thing I will say. Roquan Smith's going to look a lot better this coming Monday. When I look at Kamara, who had 9 catches last week in a blowout win over the Saints.
Dude got me
Raiders.
42 fantasy points, bro.
Absolutely. He had 18 carries and 9 catches. He had 3 total touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 2 through the air. So having Roquan this weekend will be awesome and much needed. James Lee Wiley says, I think this is Mahomes' number 1 receiver is Kelsey. No doubt about it. clearing away his number one now with Ty Hill in Miami. I will say this, though. It's crazy to think of. You know, Tyreek Hill already has over 900 yards receiving, and Waddle already has over 700. I think our entire receiving core, if you put together, is at 7 or under 7. And they have 2 guys over 7. So clearly doing things very different ways. But yeah, I mean, to James's point, it's not the only team that has their tight end as their number one receiver. Kelsey's certainly another good example of it. Kittle was that before the emergence of Deebo Samuel and now Brandon Ayuk. But I still think his most trusted target is probably George Kittle.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. It's just Quan says Miami loaded the box, but Bate cooked X. Can do that. Teams will load the box. It's not about the draft. It's about getting proven production like a Roquan.
Yeah. But who was out there?
That's the thing. The reality. Let's talk in reality, guys. Like,
because if Brandon Cooks is the only thing you got, I don't want him.
Yeah, and not even at a we couldn't even stomach his cost this year, much less next year, right? Like the only reason Roquan worked out is because they paid 4.8 of his 5 and change remaining due. Mm-hmm. Without that, we wouldn't have done anything, guys. So we did a lot better than I think we would have done.
And they wanted a 1. You know, people like They wanted a first round pick for Roquan. They had to settle for a 2 and a 5.
I want to get to this one.
Salary.
Yeah, exactly. I want to get to this one real quick because Laura made us aware of the fact that we skipped this one. Well, I must say at least they could have kept some of the wide receivers that we had that was picked up that were undrafted. I think we had some good talent.
If they were good, why are they still undrafted? Why are they still not on any teams?
Well, I think a lot of people were talking about, I'm forgetting the kid's name. He went on Shamar Bridges.
Yeah, Shamar Bridges. Oh, he's on IR.
Right. He had surgery. So
yeah, he didn't get cut. I mean, he's on. Yeah, he's hurt. I think we overestimate some of our young guys here, which is okay. We tend to do that, but
yeah, the whole James Prochet's got a whole bandwagon.
Yeah, but they're not. No, they're not. I like some plays that Bridges had in those 50-50 balls, but he just didn't get open. And that's why he had to go make those 50-50 catches. Edwin says, Roquan will elevate our linebacker group. His presence alone will improve defense, opening up complementary football. 3 phases, folks. Absolutely. It's certainly 3 phases to the football game. And I think I love our special teams group. I love our defense, and I love our offense, even with the deficiencies on the outside that I agree are very present. Let's just hope that Bateman's injury is, while it's likely, it's certainly going to be multiple weeks. Let's hope it's not season ending. And then maybe we can look forward to Bateman coming back down the stretch and healthy. And who knows what happens then. And you know, so I think I'll choose to be optimistic. Yeah. I agree with Edwin. This is a good move.
Yeah, I agree as well. Really quickly, if we skipped any others, we're trying to get through them. DK is slacking. He had something more important to do apparently tonight.
Yeah, we're trying to do this while DK. We're doing the show.
Thanks a lot, bro. Jeez. So Kieran, thanks for letting us know. Kieran Martin says, if the Ravens have to tag Lamar or Roquan, this is interesting. Do you think either one of them will hold out? And if so, would you who would you rather that be? So I think the first part of the question is, you know, who would you want to have the tag, right? Like, I don't know.
I want to sign Lamar long-term and tag Roquan if one of them has
if it comes to that.
Yeah, but I want to sign both long-term.
Right. But I agree with you. I'm done with the Lamar drama.
Yes, please. I mean, if I could only sign one, Lamar.
Yeah.
100%.
So my order is exactly the same. I think that we're up to date unless we missed someone else.
Yeah, let us know if we did.
Sure.
Jared Ramirez says the Chiefs use all of their wide receivers to their strengths. We can do the same because we have multiple receivers who can do different things. D. Robinson screens, dudes, jet sweeps, work versus the Bucs. Absolutely, there's talent in that room. There's no doubt.
Tell me about how the Las Vegas Raiders are doing. They got the
best receiver in football.
Yeah, and how are they doing? How are his stats looking this year?
They're 2-5.
Yeah.
Well, his stats are great.
Yeah. Okay. So what about, look, you could say there's multiple receivers on that team that are probably better than our current number one, right?
He had one catch for 3 yards against Latimer.
Yeah.
But I will say, to Jimmy's point, when you look at their receiving room, you would say, wow, I'll certainly take Mac Hollins and Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow over our group, but they're 2-5. But Jimmy, you'll never win because then they'll say, well, that's because they have Derek Carr. He stinks. But he did
that
lead the
just
league
lends
in
to my
passing.
point. That lends to my point that football is multifaceted.
That's true. There you go.
You know what I mean? That just feeds
Got to
into
have
my point.
everyone.
Right.
Yeah, you got to have
Absolutely.
everything.
So, but I agree with Jared. I think that the one really cool thing that we saw in this last game that I was actually, I think we got to give him some credit. Greg Roman seems to be getting a little more creative. He was in his bag.
Up.
Yeah, he was in the vault last game, knee deep in the vault. Wait, any of you guys Harry Potter fans? Look, and it's funny because the Harry Potter, like Gringotts, the bank is, are they trolls? Yeah, I think they're, no. Hobbits? What are the Gremlins? Gremlins. No, not Gremlins. What? Goblins. There you go. They're little tiny dudes, right? And they run the bank. They're like the financiers, right? So Roman's just fits in perfectly with the crew. And he's deep in the vault, down in the hand cart. He's all the way down in the secret vault, opening it up, dude. He's going. He's getting creative, don't you think? To Jared's point,
definitely. Oh, certainly. I mean, he's getting the most out of, I think, a lot of these guys. Look, nobody wanted Demarcus Robinson, right? He was cut from
the Raiders,
that very Raiders team that just got destroyed. I think that he's doing the best. I just still want to see more from Devin Duvernay on offense. I'd love to see more of him out of the backfield. I love the jet sweeps, but let's just Alfred, he's certainly calling the plays.
I was going to say, now we're going to say he's not calling the plays.
Come on now. That's what we blame him for.
Yeah.
No, he'll be back to calling the plays when they stop working.
Yeah, we'll give him one petal of a flower. That's it. This is all you get, Greg. Here.
That's all.
Jeez, whiz. Come on.
Yeah, but
you guys are better than that.
I want to talk about some other good news, Jimbo.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's turn the page.
The Ravens officially activated Tyus Bowser and David Ajabo. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about mid-season additions. Tyus Bowser apparently looks bigger and stronger than he's ever looked. He's moving around fantastically. This guy, I wonder how much, like, you get Roquan, fantastic cover guy, but you're also getting back Tyus Bowser, who's fantastic in coverage. I want to see how Mike McDonald uses this group, because we've already seen how he's used Justin Houston since he's been back. 16 plays, 15 plays, yet he's getting 2 sacks a game in just a limit. So now you're adding more guys to the group, and everyone knows the most important thing that I heard from Wink Martindale when his time here is keeping that front seven fresh. Rotating them in and out is the biggest thing you can do, because guess what? Those offensive linemen that they're facing play every single snap. They're not rotating in and out. So if you can keep your guys fresh and explosive, man, this is adding those 2 guys. I mean, look, I know Ajabo might not play for still a couple weeks, but Tyus is playing this week. I mean, that group is looking like a huge strength all of a sudden, Jimbo.
100%. I mean, I couldn't disagree with you if I wanted to. I'm so excited for this defense as a whole. And, I think there's 3 things that are more than 3, but 3 things come to my mind that are really exciting about the Baltimore Ravens right now. Obviously the acquisition of Roquan, but larger than that, our defensive health is improving. And then if you couple that in with what we've seen in the run game, obviously Gus is day to day. I know we're going to talk about that, but the run game has showed some juice. And so if we can control the clock and our defense can dominate the way we've expected it to, and the evolution of Lamar as a passer, forget who he's passing to for a second, guys. I beg of you. But think of him, think of the improvements he's made as a passer. Those 3 things are huge for the Baltimore Ravens. And I cannot wait to see how it all plays out. Because like you said, I mean, the health is the right time, the right place. Keep fresh legs in there. And you got guys, at least in Houston, that have experience here within the system. And Ajabo should have a short learning curve because he was just playing for McDonald in Michigan.
Knows the defense. So definitely just has to get more acclimated with his teammates, and certainly the coaches have to gain the trust in him. But yeah, this should be a shorter learning curve than you'd expect from most rookies who didn't have an OTA, didn't have a training camp, but he should, like you said, he should be able to kind of hit the ground running. Edwin says when at full strength, this defense has the potential to be dangerous at the right time, just like the 2012, 2013 defense. 100%. I mean, this defense has a chance to be at their best when it matters the most, which is, I mean, it's just so exciting. I mean, you're talking about fresh legs coming down the stretch.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Marcus Williams in this, particular.
He'll be back. He will absolutely be back. So yeah, I mean, I'm really, really getting excited about this defense. I think that the bye week's coming at a perfect time. I mean, I expect Ajabo to be back certainly post bye and be ready to play, even if he's just in the role that's similar to what Justin Houston's currently playing. Situational pass rusher. I mean, at the very least, let's get him in and show off that natural pass rush ability that he has. I mean, he's just born with it. I think you're either are or you're not. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Oweh has that natural ability. He certainly has to work more towards it, but let's hope that Ajabo gets to show it off because, man, it's exciting. But I do want to, Laura's hype. She said Mike McDonald, I absolutely love. Yeah, there was a little question marks early, but he's certainly winning over the fan base every game as they continue to climb the rankings. But Jimbo, I want to ask, you touched on Gus Edwards, the calling it a hamstring injury, even though some fans are saying that looked awful like a hyperextension. But I'll trust John in his diagnosis of a hamstring injury. They say he's day-to-day. So currently, going into this game, it looks like it's pretty clear it's going to be Kenyon Drake and Justice Hill. If that's the case this game, how do you feel? And if that's the case for coming out of the bye for maybe a week or two, like what's your thoughts on this running back room that's currently leading the league in yards per carry?
Yeah, I feel good about it in this game. If that is the option moving forward, I'm concerned, but I feel good about it in this game is how I'd phrase it. Like, we need Gus back. And I highly doubt that we see him on Monday night. I think he takes that rest into the bye, and then, the bus comes back following the bye. But I'm a little concerned. But like you said, the injury didn't look terrifying. And hopefully he can, the Ravens are going to continue to play conservative with him. And look, the schedule favors us right now. Not that any game is a gimme, because it's not. And the Saints, you said it before we turned it on here. They're a good football team. They beat the doors off who?
The Raiders.
Why am I blank? Yeah, right. Didn't they blank them?
Yeah, just destroyed them.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, I mean, there's no gimmies, but I'm a bit nervous long term about this. The prospect of playing without Gus, because I think we saw clearly that Gus is our best running back.
Yep.
Like, I know JK has to get healthy and stuff. Like, a lot of people think he's better. I'll argue that till the cows come home. But I think we clearly saw that right now Gus is our best guy.
I think he's just the best fit too for.
It's such a
combination
perfect fit,
of him
right?
and Lamar. Yeah, no doubt.
Dude, it's peanut butter jelly,
combo.
bro. You know how I feel about PBJ, dude.
Oh, nobody loves PBJ. But here's what I wonder. Like, I kind of look at like the Cowboys situation with Zeke and Pollard, and how Pollard is just an explosive guy, and they fans want to see more of Pollard. And I wonder if it's one of those situations where if you see more of a guy, then you don't like what you see. And then
are you referring to Gus?
No, I'm referring to Kenyon Drake and Justice Hill, because when I look at it, like Justice Hill, he gets me hyped when I watch the guy. His explosiveness, he's shot out of a cannon. He's running with power. He's running with determination. He's averaging 6.4 yards per carry on the season. Kenyon Drake, 5.1 on the season. He's had a bunch of long touchdowns. But I wonder if those two guys are now relied upon to be in a much bigger role and not just sprinkled in here and there. If we start to see those numbers take a huge step back, that's my concern. But as long as Justice Hill still looks explosive, then I guess I'll be happy with seeing him out there. Yeah,
and I guess obviously we'll see some Mike Davis, I'm guessing, in this game as well, assuming that Gus doesn't go. But I think in spots, those two have enough to get it done ultimately. But I can get your point where, like, the more you see on tape, the diminishing returns starts to be a thing, right? Like, start to get a little concerned. And that's a great question. So Adam78 says, if Josh Ross returns, could you see EDC not picking up PQ's fifth year option and trade him for a pick come off season? I think this is already an indicator the Ravens are going to pick up his fifth option, whether or not Josh Ross comes back or not.
I don't think they were picking up whether they got Roquan.
Yeah,
or
that's
not.
true. Right. But this is just a nail in the coffin, right? This is
Yeah.
Steve Smith going over to the sideline. You know what I mean? Mow my lawn.
Yeah, like he's got no chance. But I think a trade.
Yeah.
Let's see. What year will this be coming up? This will be his
This is
fourth.
he's in his third. He's going
Okay.
into his fourth. So I think
So,
this
yeah.
coming off season would make the most sense for a team,
No
right?
doubt. 100%. Yeah. And I
So-
think PQ might have a say in that as well. Go, look, I need to get out of here. I need a fresh start.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be really
fun.
interesting to see.
But
Man,
I'm
you
excited
that
about
way.
Josh Ross, man. When Josh Ross comes back, Patrick Queen is going to be, I think, man, I don't know, man. I wonder if Josh Ross starts to eat into PQ's playing time then.
It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be really interesting to see. Let's see what Samuel Brooks says. I'm just going to be happy, or I'm just going to be happy the Bungles are back to their bungle ways. Best Halloween second, only to my wedding day. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would agree in that. I don't know about your ranking of days. I don't know if I agree with those, but
I was so freaking happy to see that, dude. They
absolutely
stunk up the joint.
I knew it. I was laughing. The guys on 105.7 were talking about how the Bengals are going to win, and I was like, "Look, Chase is out, and
they never beat the Browns." Like Sean Pisker always says, they never beat the Browns.
Did you hear what Joe said after? I think he said this after the game, right?
What?
He said, it doesn't matter what my record is against the Browns. They'll never have more Super Bowl appearances than me or something like that.
What a goofball.
You lost in the Super Bowl, bro.
Now you're starting to brag about appearances in the Super Bowl?
Of course.
You goof.
Of course you would. You are a Bengal.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Like, to get beaten down like that, I am not worried about the Bengals whatsoever. I mean, we already exposed them and showed, that we have we already know how to beat them, but that offensive line is god-awful, and it's clear that if they don't have Jamar Chase and the explosiveness that he brings, then those rest of those guys aren't maybe as good as we thought they were. I mean, Tyler Boyd had that nice go-get-a-catch, but I don't know. I mean, that run game is trash.
Hey, but they got all the wide receivers, Glenn. They got all of them. Like, all Ravens flock is dying for. They got all of them.
Yep. They went out and got Lyle Collins from that vaunted Cowboys offensive line. He stinks.
Your positional value rankings, like, you need to reprioritize some things in your head, guys.
Yeah. Jared Ramirez says, I can't be the only one to think Gus is the best back on this team. The Ing Raven thinks the same thing.
Ing Raven thinks the same thing because he be listening to your boy. That's
right. That's right. Jimbo was on Gus,
dude,
when he was still scrapping to get on this roster. So
I will never forget, Glenn. There are certain moments in Ravens history that I won't forget when him and Lamar burst on the scene, the Bengals game, and I think the first touchdown we scored, we drove down the field, no passes.
I was at that game, yeah.
It was just Lamar, Gus, and it just hit.
It looked like Madden.
It was, I'll never forget it. Watch, this is magnificent. And since then, I mean, I knew the kid was special.
Down.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Hey, I think there's a growing group that think Gus is the best. And really, it's really only a discussion between him and JK, and it's a razor thin discussion when they're both at their very best.
Yeah.
At that. So I don't think you can go wrong either way. Doug says, James and Glenn, how we doing, gents? So excited with the new addition and can't wait for Smith and Queen to wreak havoc on offenses. Kind of reminds me of Lewis and Scott. What do you guys think of adding Preston Smith for a big wide receiver? Well, as far as the initial parts there, yeah, I mean, having two linebackers that have this type of athleticism and speed, it makes you wonder if they'll find a way to keep both on the field, because a lot of times there's only one linebacker. Certainly when they go dime, because they bring in guys like Kyle Hamilton and things of that nature. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what Pat Queen's new evolve. This is going to be a massive overhaul for his role. I can't wait to see kind of what they think of. What do you got? What do you think about them adding a big wide receiver in Preston Smith here, Jimbo?
I don't know. I mean, it could be cool. I'm
not
a huge fan of it. I'm kind of in a wait until situation. We'll see. I'm not even thinking about that Smith, right now.
I'm confused because I look at, when I hear Preston Smith, I think of the pass rusher. I don't
That's
know what
I
this
think
big
of
wide
well.
receiver
I think he's in college right now, isn't he?
Okay. I guess so.
I believe so.
I'm oblivious. I'm thinking of the Packers pass rusher, and then I see big wide receiver. Preston's the only wide receiver I know of that's absolutely going bonkers and could be the number one pick is Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Ohio State Buckeyes, who's
Yeah.
going bonkers, but not sure about Preston Smith.
But
Doug, sorry, just lack of knowledge on my end, I guess.
yeah, and the one thing I will say, Doug, is that PQ is and to your point, Glenn, he's going to have to take advantage of every snap that he gets because he's not just going to have the opportunity to fail and just know he's going to stay on the field all the time, right? Because his career's on the line,
especially
like,
coming back,
yeah, his career's on the line, his next paycheck's on the line. Like,
Yep.
a lot of guys that are first rounders just have the luxury of failing all the time until they get it right. He doesn't have that anymore. So, like you said, his whole outlook's got to change. Let's see. Oh, my bad. I think we clicked that simultaneously, or I think we clicked two separate ones. It doesn't matter. All right, DK, you got this? You go up to the Jared one. Okay, cool. Ravens O's Nation. The Bengals without Jamar Chase are as good as the Mavericks without Luka Doncic. Oh, I love the Steelers. I love the Steelers get beat down too. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
The Bengals offense without Jamar Chase is like the Steelers defense without TJ Watt.
It's just a neutered puppy.
Garbage.
Like, yeah, they've been absolutely neutered. I mean, just forget about it. Yeah, they're vanilla. They're just vanilla. And Joe Mixon, I've never liked the guy. Right?
Well, yeah, you don't like him for other reasons, but I can tell you this. I was surprised how much those Bengals fans hated him and how much they wanted Perrine on the field in big moments.
I know. I even brought up what was that? The 3rd and 1 in the Super Bowl where Perrine was on the field and he got the rock instead of Mixon, and people weren't up in arms about it.
No, the Bengals fans like Perrine over. That's where it shows you, like, every fan base has its thing where we would look at it and go, "What the hell?" Like how about the big faction that hates Mike Tomlin, thinks he's horrible and he should be fired, and the faction that think Andy Reid doesn't run the ball enough and he should be fired. There's every fan base has its own kind of what we would say is ridiculous,
and then we say the same stuff.
And then we have our own. Jared says if JK gets another serious injury, are we then concerned?
I'm already there. I'm already there. Like, I don't need another injury. I'm already concerned about his longevity, aren't you? I mean, he's got
not yet. He's still so young.
The reason I'm concerned is because he had the major, reconstruction of the knee.
It was massive.
Yeah, and then the re-injuring of it, the re-aggravation of it, and then having the arthroscopic surgery that always concerns because they're just cleaning up. So what happens is they're clipping away on his cartilage and stuff. Eventually, there's just none left.
Yeah, longevity for the running back position. I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. So
yeah,
you have a very short.
Unless you're built like Derrick Henry, I guess.
Yeah, how about that guy going over 200 yards again?
He almost cost me fantasy this week. I had Kamara go off, and I'm like, oh, I'm safe. And then he started going off against me. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me right now? I think we just did this one. Yeah. Yep. Awesome. I think we got Oh, okay.
Oh, Williams. Oh, okay. Okay. Got you. Okay. Well, I'm glad. First of all, I'm glad you cleared things up. I think the Ravens would have to be. Here's the thing: they got big bodies, but they need they got how many tight ends do they got? Like, they got big bodies, so I don't know if Preston Williams is necessarily going to be.
Kohler's coming back eventually.
Yeah, which, by the way, Nick Boyle needs to be off this team. He's garbage at this point. And look, we loved us some Nick Boyle, but I saw him get absolutely bullied by Shaq Barrett to the point where I'm like, what is he doing?
He can't play professional football anymore.
No. I mean, if you get bullied like that in the run game,
he should just get into bodybuilding.
I mean, whatever, good luck, whatever he's doing. He's made a very good living, but yeah.
Right. So let's see. Tariq Keek says, all the complain. We already have 2 Pro Bowl or potential Pro Bowl receivers in Duvin Bate, and you don't know it. We will draft a deep threat in the draft. So, I mean, it's kind of getting to my point here in that, like, got to put some respect on the names we got here. Obviously, Duvernay or Bateman is hurt. I do understand people's points in the immediate. The cupboard's kind of bare. I do think we have more than what people are giving credit to, but we can't do anything right now. It is the reality of our situation. We got 23 miles left in the race, and this is what we got. No one's coming to help us, Glenn. It is what it is. So get over it.
It is what it is. Now, look, this team I think the sentiment, I think the feeling about the wide receiver room would be a lot different if Bateman has been healthy the whole year.
Yeah, for sure.
because he looked
sure.
good. I mean, he looked
Yeah.
what we were hoping for. He was getting great separation. His yards after catch were finally on display. But, I mean, he's just hurt too damn much. And it could be completely unfair for us to criticize him for that because it could have been just simply bad luck and nothing he could have done to prevent it. But at the same time, man, he's just been hurt every freaking year, man. It drives you crazy.
Yeah, well, let's wrap it up with Assad. Rahman here says, LJ wins more than Burrow, and the offense is completely different. Everything is impossible until it gets done. We can win being different. Amen. Amen. What a great way to wrap it up tonight, Assad. I mean,
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely, Glenn. Like, I don't think I could have said it better myself.
I think that's the part, that last sentence is the part that a lot of fans can't get over. Is that you can win in a different way. They think there's only one way to win because a lot of times they turn on SportsCenter and what do they see, Jimbo? They see nothing but the highlights. They see nothing but the receivers going up and getting it. They don't see the shortcomings of every one of those teams when they can't pick up short yardage, when they can't protect their quarterback, when they can't run the ball effectively. I think that's the big point is you can win different ways.
100%. Well, we want to wrap up this show by announcing our fan competition winner of last week. DK astutely reminded us because, right over the heads of Glenn and I.
And what an interesting winner this week because there was a little controversy with this individual not long ago where this person's submissions were not read for a previous competition.
Came back. Look, just re-geared, retooled. Bam, got it in. So, DK, you want to load that banner up? Who won this week for us? Marky Shepard submitted in Facebook. So go ahead and send us another direct message in Facebook with your address and shirt size, and we will be sure to get that out to you. But, Glenn, it's been a great time tonight. I had an absolute blast. We're excited about Thursday. Of course, we'll get you prepared for this Monday night game coming up against the Saints. Let's give some shout-outs real quick. Tanja Bowman, Dave Cutsale. I think, Dave, you were watching while you're cooking dinner. Shout out. Gideon Toxla. Don C, of course, always in here. Assad Rahman, Tariq Keek, all you guys. We had a great showing tonight, over 300. We appreciate it every week. It seems to go up. So thank you so much. Had a great night. We'll talk to you guys Thursday.